morning.
Good morning and welcome to Get Real America.
I'm Bill Edwards.
I'm Brittany Brown.
And it's Martin Luther King Day. A lot of you might be enjoying the holiday. The weather certainly is going to be great for a parade if you like to bundle up because it's 29 degrees right now here in sunny Savannah. Welcome to the sunny South, Brittany.
Yeah, it's a little chillier than I ever anticipated. Good thing I didn't get rid of my winter coats.
Yeah, there you go. And it's going up to only about 60 today. So a parade time, it should be somewhere in the 40s. So so we got the big parade that is coming up today as well. And we have all sorts of good stuff to talk to you about. We're going to be rejoining our good buddy Jay Ratliff, who is an aviation analyst, talking about all the things that are going on in the airline industry. Also with President Biden, Mar-a-Lago continues as we're finding more and more documents, secret documents that he's not supposed to have. Remember, as a vice president, one thing if he were president, but he was the vice president when all this stuff came about. And we learned more and more about his history and background this weekend, Miss Brittany.
Yeah, the fact that here's the thing. I don't think it's a coincidence that all of a sudden these documents were found. I think the second he decided that he was running for office again, whoever is pulling the strings was like, oh no, not so fast.
I believe that this is something that the Democrats are circling the wagons from this standpoint of they don't want him to run again. They know how unpopular he is, and I think even some of them are realizing he is destroying America. But I can remember back in college when I heard I was watching a speech by then President Lyndon Johnson when he said he wasn't going to run again because the Vietnam War was going badly, riots were going across America. On a lot of the college campuses at Ole Miss, we were at least going to class and trying to learn stuff. But I think that the Democrats actually got him into an office somewhere and took him to the woodshed, as it were, and said, look, things are going badly. Your credit rating and everything else, your popularity ratings are in the toilet. You're not going to run again for president. And he didn't. So that's when we got Hubert Humphrey going up against Richard Nixon. That Nixon won very, very narrowly at that time, but then he won re-election by a landslide, and then things happened with the Watergate, and that's another story for another day. But at the same time, I think the Democrats finally this time have decided this guy cannot run again for office. You can see all the criticism that he's getting now, Brittany, from Democrats.
I know CNN's going after him. It's kind of interesting to watch.
It is. I mean, we even had Ilhan Omar is all of a sudden talking, making some sense. She was, I think she was on either Beat the Press or Mace the Nation or one of the Sunday shows yesterday, and said she was in favor of the special prosecutor and everything else.
Yes, and I will say it's interesting though. This special prosecutor, they keep saying, oh, he was appointed by Trump, but he's also connected to a lot of the shenanigans that went on in the Trump era. So I don't know that I trust the special prosecutor or that we should be all on board with this. I'm not a super big fan of special prosecutors. I do think it eliminates the ability of accountability a lot of the times. I mean, these investigations go on for years and years and years.
Even on Beat the Press yesterday, we saw one of our empty suits from Georgia, Raphael Warnock, when our senator said, nobody's above the law. First time I've heard that come out of Democrats' mouths about another Democrat.
Very surprising. Well, here's the thing. Because they made such a big deal about Trump and the documents at Mar-a-Lago, which him being the president, he does have the ability to declassify documents, and it's been a known tradition that they do take a lot of those documents with them when they leave. The other thing is, I did hear, and I do need to fact check this, and I don't know if you know anything about this, Bill, but George Bush actually did an executive order to where whoever classified the information could declassify it. So if you're the vice president, you would be able to do that. So I don't know if that maybe has something to do with some of these documents that Joe Biden has. In all fairness, I do want to make sure that we are looking at the laws, but I'm not sure if that executive order still applies now or what that looks like. But there was a lot of power given to the vice president during his presidency.
I doubt that. Vice presidents aren't supposed to have this stuff, and they don't have I haven't heard anybody say that the vice president does have the power. to declassify any of that. The president does, and Biden was vice president at the time. But fortunately, it was locked in his garage where his Corvette is. So, whew, glad we got that top secret vault taken care of.
Well, I also think it's interesting how many people had access to that office, including his wife, Jill Biden, his son Hunter, and even, I believe, someone that works for the CCP at. And the university and Penn State is known for also taking a lot of money from the CCP, and they have a huge linkage to China. So,
well, the Communist Chinese Party actually financed his position there, that department at UPenn. So it's just unbelievable. Yeah, you can't make this stuff up. It's one of those poison Ivy League schools. It's where they don't teach crap. But nevertheless, here we go. It's just amazing that, and we're finding out more and more that Hunter actually lived in that house, one of the houses there.
Shocking.
Most of the time, yeah, hard to believe. So who knows how many people had access to all of that information? So the facade of all this is beginning to crumble, and even the Democrats are after the president. So something to say. But the president, to his credit, has always been a stand-up guy when it comes to Martin Luther King and the civil rights movement.
Oh yes, I believe he was down here at the infamous Church of Martin Luther King speaking this weekend, which is always exciting.
Yeah. So and in telling people about how he used to attend.
Yes.
And let's say one thing to rest. I may be a practicing Catholic. I used to go to 7:30 Mass every morning in high school and then in college before I went to the black church. Not a joke. Andy knows this.
Whenever he says it's not a joke,
he's lying.
It's a joke. Yeah,
he's lying.
That's right. Yeah, of course, he's lying when his lips are moving, but nevertheless, here he is. He goes to this. I believe also we've uncovered some information because our crack staff has dug into this. I believe he was captaining the Carpathia when he went to pick up the Titanic survivors. So just a marvelous resume from this guy.
Joe Biden, he's done it all,
seen
it all. I mean, really, he's basically like 150 years old at this point.
No,
so.
at least was there trying to stop the Confederates from firing on Fort Sumter in Charleston, but it didn't work out. So.
Yeah. Oh, Joe Biden, and I think it's interesting because who do they have on, like, their bench is not very deep on the Democrat side, so I'm curious as to who will be running in 2024 and who they expect to replace him with, and will we see Kamala Harris in that seat before the end of his presidency?
There's a good point, because his health not too good, and of course his brain doesn't work at all. So you have to wonder who really is the president. So I don't think it makes any difference who they're going to run and who they're going to stuff the ballot box with, because as you know, the Hildebeest has already told us that the 2024 election has been rigged.
Wow, she's something else. I'll tell you that much. And I will tell you that how has it already been rigged? The only person that's announced they're running is Donald Trump.
Yeah, I know. Biden has announced his intention to run. He hasn't made it official yet, but he says his intention that he and his wife are going to run for co-presidency again.
Oh, wonderful.
Not Dr. Jill, who's not a doctor, by the way.
Yes, and I did see like a story about the Bidens and how Jill actually, I mean, they're not they don't have the cleanest history. They both cheated on their spouses, from what I understood, and were seeing each other before Joe Biden's first wife passed away. But I just think it's interesting how they're willing to put people on a pedestal and claim that they're such these great people until they need to get rid of them, and then they find a way. And it's very interesting how all of this is playing out right now, Bill. And I don't think that it's an accident that all of a sudden these papers appeared, because what were those lawyers doing? Why did they have access to this stuff? I mean, there's a lot of questions that I just don't know if we're going to get the answers to. But I will say, it will be interesting for the House right now to see what investigations they do and what comes out of them, because I do think if they investigate Hunter Biden, a lot of this stuff is connected to Joe Biden and we'll see a lot of the chips fall as they may here.
Well, it's interesting how the news media suddenly discovers a story after it's no longer damaging
Right.
to to the sitting president or to anybody else that they happen to like on the Democrat side. And they will say, for example, when the haughty John Kerry, old Boltneck, was running for president against George Bush, they were singing his praises. After he lost the election, the story started coming out. Well, this guy was so disorganized, and he was this and he was that. He didn't treat his staff well. He didn't know where he was half the time either. And I said, why weren't they giving us these stories during the campaign instead of after the campaign? And this is always the way it goes. And I was always amused when listening over the years of listening to Rush Limbaugh, God rest his soul, and God knows we could use him back. Could we have a seance and bring him back or something? Because we could sure use his voice these days. But when Rush, he would tell these, he would break these stories that we'd run for months, and then all of a sudden, when it became obvious that the press couldn't hold it back any longer, they would say, we've got this exclusive breaking story. I always love it. Tom Brokenjaw, and the rest of the kids at the National Barak Channel and the Communist Broadcast System and the Arab Broadcast Company would come up and say, wait, blockbuster news. They would come up with this. Rush had been talking about it for 6 months. So this continues such an embarrassment that we have in our national news media, and the American people, you deserve better. It's one of the reasons that we're here with our little voice in the wilderness, trying to get these people straightened out. But for the life of me, I can't figure out why these people continue to double down on stupid. They continue to lie to you on a daily basis. They make up stories. They fabricate things. They give all sorts of misinformation. They obfuscate issues, and it's easily proven. Whether it's Rachel Mad Cow disease telling you all you need to do is get the Fauci ouchie and COVID is going to go away. You don't have to worry about it. You won't spread it. You won't get it anymore. Nobody else is going to get it. It's all going to be good. And of course, we found out it's anything but the case. And yet she gets to sign a $24 million contract or something with BSDNC. And why corporate America is paying these people to continually sit there with egg on their face is beyond my comprehension. I thought everybody should have been fired. I was looking forward to my big network job and finally getting my big break after the 2016 election. I said, well, why aren't all these people fired? They told us that the Hildebeest was going to win this thing by a landslide.
Well, you know that they're not staying afloat just by advertisers. I mean, there's people pumping money into these networks because there's no way they do not have the ratings.
The Washington Compost couldn't possibly be still publishing be public without Jeff Bezos billions that he has propping this thing up. Same with the New York Times.
Yeah, especially because a lot of their reporting is just so vile too. It's not. I mean, it's just hateful. It's just hateful stuff that they spew out, and they're really wanting to divide people. They're really wanting people to be at each other's throats. They really want to demonize mostly conservatives, I will say.
Yeah, and we keep hearing about how about hate speech that we hear from the left, and I, as much as I enjoy some of the shows that are on TV, right, like the FBI series that CBS has, and to a degree it's the FBI I'd like to have instead of the one that we do have that are actually going out there and doing their jobs. But I notice the bad guys in there now are never black anymore. They're white. They're the white supremacists. They are the insurrectionists that are after to destroy America. Those are the bad guys on the FBI now.
Well, and I just think it's interesting. As a culture, we have got to start addressing some of these issues. I actually heard something very interesting this weekend about if a two-parent household produces the same outcome for children as a single father, but single motherhood produces more of what we're seeing with the them being kids being more less stabilized, and we're seeing the outcomes being negative. I thought that was kind of an interesting outlook on it, because women are always given custody of the children over the man. And so it just leads to this more destable population that we're seeing right now.
Yeah, it's like, women get the elevator and the guys get the shaft. And I know that from some dear friends of ours from church a few years ago, where his kids were given to his wife, who was alcoholic, and also she was a nurse.
Oh, wow.
And accused of stealing drugs from the hospital and drunk all the time. But she was given possession of the kids, and he had to pay this enormous amount of alimony. It was just unbelievable. Talk more about that. A tragedy at the University of Georgia that we're going to be talking about. But speaking of fathers being in the home, one former NFL great, Jack Brewer, is trying to address that issue. We'll be talking about that more coming up next on Get Real America. Happy Monday.
Bernard-Williams Insurance and Financial Services, a locally owned and operated insurance company, proudly serving the Savannah community with integrity, security, and trust. Experience the power of the Shield since 1934. For more information, go to thepoweroftheshield.com.
At Get Real America, we'd like to thank the Southeast Georgia Republican Assembly for all their efforts on making a difference in our communities.
When you're looking to buy a business or sell a business, the experts at Best Business Brokers have you covered. Whether you're ready to cash in on your years of hard work or you're taking that first step in buying a business of your own, they're here to guide you through the process and make sure you get the best outcome possible. By having Best Business Brokers assist you when you buy a business or sell a business, they handle the legwork of the intricate process. This ensures a smooth transition of ownership, allowing you to get to work immediately or receive payment for your business as soon as possible. With base operations in Savannah and Charleston, they service all of Georgia and South Carolina. If you're considering starting a business here, the mild winters and 5-tiered economic areas make these the perfect places to do so. If you're ready to buy a business or sell a business, then you're ready to contact Best Business Brokers. Visit their website at b3brokers.com or call at 912-349-0940.
Welcome back to Get Real America.
I'm Bill Edwards.
I'm Brittany Brown.
Happy Monday, and hope you're enjoying your holiday. For those of you who haven't,
Yes.
we're here live and in color. So
Yes, and hopefully you've bundled up. It is chilly outside.
Going to be a little brisk for the parade today, even though the weather is not a cloud in the sky at this point. Really beautiful outside. If it weren't for the fact that it was 29 degrees at this point.
Yes.
Other than that, it rarely gets that low here in Savannah, but every once in a while it does. The party atmosphere and the celebratory atmosphere at the University of Georgia has been dampened down considerably. Georgia offensive lineman Devin Willock and a recruiting staff member were killed early yesterday morning in a car crash in Athens. After the celebration, there was a big parade and celebration for winning their second national championship in a row on Saturday. And then this car crash occurred. 2 other members of the football program were in the crash. They are listed in stable condition and have not been identified. But it was a single vehicle accident. It happened about 2:45 yesterday morning, Brittany, according to a statement from the Athens-Clarke Police Department. The initial investigation found that this Ford Expedition left the roadway, striking 2 power poles and several trees. Good Lord, how fast were they going? but the 20-year-old Willock was pronounced dead at the scene. The driver of the vehicle was 24-year-old Chandler LaCroix. She was transported to the hospital, but she died there from her injuries. And I don't know exactly what a recruiting analyst is. She's 24 years old. A statement from Kirby Smart, the head coach at Georgia, said, "We are all heartbroken and devastated with the loss of Devin Willock and Chandler LaCroix. Devin was an outstanding young man in every way. He was always smiling. He was also, he said, we grieve with their families of this tragic loss and will support them in every way possible. Police said the wreck still under investigation. They haven't determined what factors may have contributed to the crash, and it could be several days before any report is issued. They said the entire Georgia family is devastated by this tragic loss of football student athlete Devin Willock and football staff member Chandler LaCroix. And a statement from the school said that Devin and Chandler were two special people who meant so much at the University of Georgia, our football program. Willock was a 6'7", 335-pound redshirt sophomore from New Milford, New Jersey. And so our prayers and sympathy we're heartbroken over this issue that happened after such a great celebration of Georgia winning its second national championship in a row. So to all those in Bulldog Nation, our prayers go with you. Jack Brewer, I had a chance to meet him, Brittany, when he was here a couple of years ago campaigning for the Republican candidates for Senate.
Oh, really?
He was through here. He'd just been elected to Congress, former NFL great, and he was raised by great parents, and he realizes that, especially in the black community now, that kids are growing up without a father, and believe me, it's made a devastating impact. He's trying to do something about it. A great story from Fox News weekend over the Fox News and Fox and Friends weekend report, talking about Jack Brewer's, shall we say, his campaign to get fathers back in the home. So,
yeah, and I mean, it's a huge foundation that he started, and like we talked about earlier, fathers are so critical, and while mothers are critical as well, I think the outcomes that fathers produce is so different because the way they deal with their children is very different.
Especially the male child.
Yes.
So this report from Rachel Campos Duffy from Fox and Friends over the weekend.
We're in Florida at the Jack Brewer Foundation headquarters, getting a behind-the-scenes look at how he spends his time, what he loves, what he's passionate about, and that is serving others.
Rachel, this is the Serving Institute Sanctuary, where we hold serving ministry services every Sunday. It's also the place where all of our kids, our youth, and our families come gather.
Before we go see the kids, let's talk about the man behind Jack Brewer.
Jack Brewer is a sinner that had to give his life to Christ. And, growing up, I grew up in a family that was very loving. My father was my inspiration, he's my hero. And my mom is probably the most spiritual woman that I've ever met.
Did they see the promise of your talent sports-wise very early?
Yeah.
So how old were you when they were like, okay, this kid can make it?
So my mom, she found my goals, because I'm big on writing goals down. She sent my goals from when I was 6 years old.
Okay.
It said make it to the NFL.
Wow.
And
wow. What kind of dad are you?
A praying dad. I get up every morning and I want my kids to see a man praying. I take my Bible wherever I go.
You and I have talked about this before. Fatherlessness is the crisis in America.
I carry a heavy burden thinking about 18.5 million fatherless kids across the land that I love so much. And so I think in the United States, men need to man up and understand that it's our job to take care of our flock. That it's our job to protect our women. It's our job to protect and raise our sons, but not just ours that are our blood. It's our responsibility to help serve our community.
Talk to me about this space as a as a haven from what's out there.
We're changing the culture for our little kids. Their reality is different. They may be exposed to the other culture, but they know what it feels like to come over here. They know what that love feels like, that love of Christ feels like. And unfortunately, when you look at our society and you see what reading and math proficiency levels in the tank, you see, crime spiking, all of that is running parallel to the decline in church participation.
Yes,
How many kids are at-risk kids do you really believe have someone anointing their head and praying over them on a regular basis? Hopefully, we can get prayer and God actually back in our schools, because it's the only thing that has the power to break up all these evils that are facing our children today. Welcome to the Bible Cafe. This is the place that our kids come and are able to get tutored every day.
So it's academic, and it's spiritual.
Spiritual first.
Spiritual first.
That's right.
Then it's academic. Then we got the physical component.
This is our Hero Sports Academy room. I took the designs from my NFL locker room. Our flag football team trains here. Our baseball team trains here. We also have full facilities outside as well. And this is a professional grade batting cage. Our older kids, this is our middle school age group. They just got out of school. How was school, man?
You're welcome.
So this is Brandy. She was running around, sneaking out of the house, chasing boys, failing out of school, and she went to an alternative school.
Okay.
And was able to catch up 2 grade levels.
Wow.
And now, tell her.
I have straight A's and B's.
All it takes is what?
All you got!
All it takes is what?
All you got!
All it takes is what?
All you got!
These are little kids who have an NFL superstar player who is coaching them. I mean, it's just pretty remarkable what you've done.
You know, it's a blessing. I told you earlier that, I've had coaching offers, college. I even had a pro coaching job offer when I left the NFL, and I passed it up because this is what I want to do. You couldn't pay me $1 to do it. For me, I want to see these kids graduate, go on and be good men of God, preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ, and set an example.
Jack, there's a lot of football on my show, but I'm not the football girl. Like the boys on, Will, Pete, they'll tell you I don't know a lot about football.
Well, Will and
So
Pete,
I
now
thought-
she's about to master this.
Exactly.
So you better get ready. Right there on top, right here. You feel that?
Yep.
Here. If you can see that. There you go. Looks kind of good.
All right.
All right, here we go. Let's see a spiral come out of there. Wow! You're a natural.
Go! Set high!
Let's go, yeah! Not yet!
Yeah.
This is really good.
It's
really good.
Really good. I mean, he has combined all of it. Like I said, it's first spiritual. Those kids, when he actually gives a sermon to them, like a little talk, they memorize Bible quotes that are relevant to them in their life. He calls on them. He takes oil and anoints all of them every day that they come. And then they go and get tutored. He has a tutoring program there. And then he gets them to the practice. He makes sure that they are in the same sports programs as the other kids who have more means in the community, and make sure that through his organization, they have just as good of equipment, that they can compete on that level as well. And boy, I mean, they're getting coached by an NFL player. I mean, it's no joke.
Yeah.
He's not writing a check. He's there coaching. He's there preaching. He's there praying over them and anointing them. It's amazing.
He's an inspiration.
What a great story. And Brittany, we've been saying for years, but if you say this in the white community, so to speak, you're a racist. That we need more family structure when in the black community, because the dads are gone because of the welfare system now. People say dads aren't that important.
Well, also they're so toxic, Bill. Toxic masculinity is quite a problem, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
We're seeing that not having it is quite the problem.
Exactly.
And
but you bring this up, Paul Ryan. One of the few things that I like that he did when he started talking about this was heavily criticized of being racist. Bill Cosby, but long before his fall from grace overall, but his fall from grace to the black community, when he started complaining about it, when he was known as America's dad, and he said, but without fathers in the home, look what's happening to these kids. These young men do not know how to be a man. They want to settle things with a gun or with a knife rather than either with their fists. I can remember when kids got into a fight in school. They were bitter enemies or something. They get into this big fight, and a few days later, they're best buddies, and they got it all out of their system.
Yeah.
And but starting to settle it with a gun or a knife now is the way they do it.
Well, and I think they've also made it really, really hard to discuss what's going on. Because if you look at the videos that I'm seeing and the craziness happening in a lot of these stores, the fistfights, the carjackings, it does come from one community. And because it is swayed that way, it does look like we're being racist. But do you see how they've manipulated it to where we can't talk about what's actually happening? And, there's a huge issue in the Black community with, fatherless homes and these young men growing up. And I mean, I've seen so many videos of them attacking people and just beating the living crap out of them, taking their car, taking their purse, their wallet, whatever it is. And people are not learning how to deal with their feelings or their aggression or any of that. And we're seeing it really it's being hyper inflated, especially when we're not also prosecuting a lot of these crimes.
Yeah,
so
that doesn't help either. Meanwhile, what's going on in the airline industry? We're going to start. We're going to have the first of our regular features now pretty soon here with Jay Ratliff, aviation analyst, and we'll be talking with him about what is happening airline-wise and what you should be aware of. Coming up next here on Get Real America.
Universe organization. From now on, it's going to be.
Gracias. Thank you.
What's wrong, mijo?
Donating to a pet's medical care can keep families together. Pets and people belong together. Learn more at petsandpeopletogether.org.
Byrne-Williams Insurance and Financial Services, a locally owned and operated insurance company, proudly serving the Savannah community with integrity, security, and trust. Experience the power of the Shield since 1934. For more information, go to thepoweroftheshield.com.
welcome back to Get Real America.
I'm Bill Edwards.
I'm Brittany Brown.
Hope you're enjoying your holiday. If you're having one of those here on Martin Luther King Day, parade going to be stepping off around 10 o'clock this morning here in Savannah, where it's going to be a little brisk. So dress in layers, as we like to say. We have all the meteorologists now that save your lives on television now. Dress in layers.
Yes. Scarf and hat weather for sure, and some gloves.
Yeah, for real. How's your travel over the holiday weekend? We heard over the holidays, we heard about all the delays and everything, especially with Southwest Airlines and how they have not upgraded their system. What's going on airline-wise? We're going to keep you posted on that as we begin our series with Jay Ratliff, aviation analyst, and had a chance to talk with Jay about just exactly what did happen over the holidays and what we can expect going forward. It's a pleasure to be talking with our good friend Jay Ratliff. And Jay, welcome as the inaugural event of our Zoom connections here on Get Real America, iHeart Aviation analyst, and telling us what's going on in the aviation industry. And Jay, there have been some little snafus over the holidays and stuff. Good morning.
Oh, there has been. I mean, you talk about Southwest Airlines. The last 2 weeks of the year, you had the FAA and the Canadian computer systems that were affected here recently, and it has been a very active time as far as commercial aviation. Hopefully, we can get by all of this now and get back to the boring normalcy that we've had before, because January is a low travel month. You and I've talked about that for years. Mm-hmm. The first 2 weeks of the year is always a slower time coming off the holidays. So, normally we're only battling bad weather, But this year, we've been battling other things. Of course, you remember last year at this time, I think it was the mask mandate we were battling because we had so many incidents of people acting up on planes. But it seems like a new year, new challenges.
Yeah. What happened with Southwest? They got so much bad publicity because they said, hey, we sent them all these millions of dollars while they during the pandemic. Why didn't they upgrade their system? What happened?
Well, I mean, you mean the system from the 1990s? Yeah, they've been talking about for some time upgrading their crew scheduling software program. And I have probably talked about it two or three times in the last year and a half, when it's just stopped working. It's an antiquated system that was put into place when Southwest was 1/3 of the size that they are now.
Wow.
So it's overtaxed, and every time it goes down during a non-holiday time, the all-stars at Southwest Airlines, a great airline, a great group of people, they find a way to make it happen. They pull it together, they rise to the occasion, they save the day. Well, this time it happens in the middle of a holiday travel season, coming off that bad weather event. And Bill, it was so bad that crew schedulers had to start doing things manually. Now, for people that are younger in our audience, they can Google that term manual to know what we did before computers. It's a very slow process. It took forever. And I was really disappointed with Southwest because I'm a huge fan. But on the 26th of December, that was a Monday, they came out and said in text messages to their customers, we're sorry about the cancellations and the delays due to the weather event. I was getting copies of these. And I'm like, weather? What are they talking? It's the 26th of December. American Airlines canceled 12 flights. American operates more than Southwest. Southwest canceled 2,909. That's 71% of their schedule. And they weren't taking ownership. They were just kind of hiding behind it's a weather event, out of our control, hardly. And it quickly caught up with them to the point they had to admit, we've got a kind of an outdated system here that needs to be fixed. And the pilots and flight attendants for years have been begging for this system to be upgraded. And up till now, those pleas have fallen on deaf ears.
Mm-hmm. So what's the plan now? I know that Pete Buttigieg, our transportation secretary, right on it, said he would be fining them and that everybody ought to be reimbursed their money.
Yeah, in fact, my sister was flying that Monday, and her flight was canceled. We had to buy a last-minute American Airlines ticket from Omaha through Midway to Manchester, New Hampshire, and it cost us $1,346 or something for a last-minute round-trip ticket. Now, Southwest Airlines said you can go to their website. You can actually begin a claim with them, which I did a few days ago. Bill, I gave them the receipts, showed them what we paid, and it was refunded within 2 days. So they're trying to make good, which is what Southwest does. They're a great airline, but they've got to do what they can to make sure this doesn't happen again. I mean, if you and I are pilots walking through, let's say, the Atlanta airport, we're on our way to the San Diego gate, and our rotation or aircraft assignments change, they have to call us on our phones to say, you and Bill need to head to this gate instead of that gate because you're going to another city. If they can't reach us by phone, Southwest has to send somebody after us and find us in the airport to tell us. Now, you've got other airlines that have everything that's automatic, text messages, there's ways for them to access information. It's all electronic. Southwest is operating under such an old, antiquated system that it's beyond outdated, and they really need to upgrade it. The problem is it costs money. And right now, Southwest, for the last 10 years, has been more interested in shareholder returns than they have been investing in their company. Now, yes, they did receive a lot of money from the bailouts, as all the airlines did, but that was just to keep the airline running. It wasn't designed to improve the infrastructure or anything along those lines. So that's one of the reasons we can't look at it and see, that money being spent differently. And, I'm not a fan of the Biden administration. You know me well enough to know that. But I am pleased that they're going after the airlines, trying to hold them accountable. And when Pete Buttigieg says, look, we're going to make sure if the airlines drop the ball, that they're going to reimburse the customers appropriately. The funny thing is, when the FAA system went down, Andrea Mitchell, the news correspondent who is somewhat, shall I say, incredibly liberal, she asked Pete, she says, hey, now wait a minute. You've told airlines that when they drop the ball, they need to reimburse customers. She said, this is a government problem. Are you going to reimburse customers? Oh, it's a great question. It sounded like something would come from Fox, not Andrea Mitchell. I was so proud of her. If I had her email address, I'd say, oh my gosh, what a great question. And he kind of hammered around and said, well, we're not a business. We're not a for-profit organization, blah, blah, blah. In other words, heck no, we're not going to reimburse anybody. But I just loved seeing him squirm because that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, what is the story there, Dave? Because that should be upgraded. I think somebody compared to our system to a few years ago, Canada upgraded their system using laptops or something, and it's worked beautifully.
Well, it did until the same day. In fact, Canada had the same problem we did on the same day, which fueled speculation that maybe it was hacked of some kind. Both countries are saying that wasn't the case. But, in the 32 years I've been doing the aviation reports, this is the first time that I remember this system crashing as it did. The FAA knew the day before that the NOTAMs, the notice, well, we used to call them notice to airmen. Can't use the term men anymore because that's politically incorrect. So it's now a notice to air missions so that no one's feelings get hurt. And these are delivered to the crews before they leave. It's not, I wouldn't call it a critical item, but it is last minute advisories on the city specific flight. If you're flying from Savannah to Dallas, it might say, look, there's an air show that's going to be going on here. Military operations are going on here. When you get to Dallas, these runway lights are out or this construction is taking place. Flight crews are required by the Federal Aviation Administration to review and sign off on that information so that they're aware of any last minute notifications that might impact or come into play with their particular flight. The day before that this melted down, they were having issues delivering those NOTAMs to the crews. And by the time that the overnight and the next morning hit, they were finding out that they were delivering them to fewer and fewer flight crews. And they finally said, look, we just got to shut it down. We'll restart. They had it down for 90 minutes. We had to ground stop of any departing flights on that day for about 90 minutes. The planes that were in the sky were operating safely. There was no issue whatsoever. They weren't forced to land as we did during the attacks of 9/11. So it was just a ground stop that we've seen. And within 90 minutes, we were back up and running. And it took about a day and a half for us to fully recover from that. I had no problem at all with the FAA having that temporary ground stop so that they could make sure everything was in place. Again, it was just an inconvenience, but it was on a Wednesday on that week in January. And as a result, Wednesday is one of the slower travel days. You're talking about January, which is a slow travel month, and we had good weather. A lot of things were working to our advantage. I mean, can you imagine if that same situation had happened 2 weeks before during the holiday? My goodness, what a mess that would have been. So, hopefully they will spend the necessary money and resources to get the system upgraded. But look, I'm not a huge fan of the FAA, but I'm giving them a free pass here because very rarely have we seen this happen where the redundant or backup systems haven't responded. In this case, they did not, which has not been the case that we've seen in the decades past. So as a result, if they can spend the necessary money to make sure that it's upgraded, I'm going to be okay with it. And I don't look at this as an ongoing issue. I'm far more concerned on the Southwest issue because they've proven over the decades on a system that continues to fail repeatedly that they're not willing to upgrade it. That's obviously something that I'm concerned with. They need to address because the questions that are being asked, Bill, is, look, if Southwest is cutting the corner on technology, is it possible that they're going to cut the corners on maintenance and other types of things?
Exactly.
But look, those are legitimate questions that have to be asked.
They are. Well, Jay, it's a pleasure once again to get back in touch with you. And got any? Do you have an amusing story to end up with here?
Well, I mean, we did have the woman that tried to smuggle the boa constrictor in her carry-on luggage. She said it was her emotional support animal, and it was in Tampa, and the TSA officer said, you're not taking this on board the flight. And we recently had a Delta flight that was on its way into Schiphol, the Amsterdam airport. They missed the runway. They landed short. You've got the runway, but before the runway, you have the lights and pavement, which is not runway. Well, they just plowed right through the runway lights and damaged the pavement. The plane landed without any serious injuries, but a lot of damage. So the Delta is going to try to figure out why their pilots, with all the technology and training that they're experienced at their BS, that they weren't able to execute a normal landing at the Schiphol Airport. So that investigation right now is underway.
All right. Well, thank God it wasn't a dike or something, or a windmill. All right.
Absolutely.
Jay, it was a pleasure. Thank you much. We'll stay in touch.
Thank
God
you.
bless.
Bernard Williams Insurance and Financial Services, a locally owned and operated insurance company, proudly serving the Savannah community with integrity, security, and trust. Experience the power of the Shield since 1934. For more information, go to thepoweroftheshield.com.
Welcome back to Get Real America.
I'm Bill Edwards.
I'm Brittany Brown.
Hope you're having a good King holiday. If indeed you are having a holiday today, we're not, so here we are.
Yes,
live and in person. But glad you're aboard. Once again, Jay Ratliff, iHeart Aviation analyst, being with us now. That's going to be a regular feature to get you up to date on what's going on in the travel world as you get ready to make travel plans. And the best thing is, Brittany, is to make those travel plans far in advance. Now, we sometimes we say we plan our vacations better than we plan our lives for the most part.
True.
But
Very true.
You can make plans about and you can get great bargains, and even in today's inflated prices, if you make your plans far enough out. I know it sounds like booking something like a year from now, but you can get the deal that you want. You can lock in the prices that you need. You just buy like travel insurance. So if you have to change those plans, you get your money back, or you can shift it to another date or something along those lines without any monetary penalties. But make those plans and go and travel and do what you want. But a year seems like a long time looking forward. When you look back to a year ago, it seems like day before yesterday. So time flies when you're having fun. Make those travel plans, gives you something to look forward to, get excited about, and that's where you can get the bargains, and Jay can give you all those great tips. Jay is a terrific guy. Talked to him for years when I was doing my radio show, and he actually lives here in the Savannah area. He still has a home up there in his native Ohio, but I think they're pretty much going to be moving down here for the most part in the coming months and years. Brittany's got a beautiful place nearby.
I love it. Well, and I love that he gave Southwest credit for making things right, but also was very realistic that they've got to make some changes. Yeah. So I love how he held them accountable, but also gave them credit for the things that they do really, really well.
Yeah, this is the thing that I don't understand, Brittany. They are such a good airline. We got our knees bloody for years begging them to come to Savannah. We finally got them about 5 years ago, but it took over 20 years of negotiations and everything else to get Southwest to come here. And everybody raves about them. I've flown Southwest on several occasions, and they're wonderful. Why wouldn't when they're getting all these millions and billions of dollars, especially during COVID when things were so slow, where you wouldn't have noticed an upgrade very much. It would have been slight delays. Why wouldn't you be upgrading the equipment to be on par with all the other airlines? Why are you neglecting then. I know that they want to, as a,
Show
if I were-
profits
If I
for-
were a
yeah.
stockholder, which I might be, I haven't looked at my 401k lately, but or where our investor puts the money. All I know is he's doing a great job for us. But why wouldn't you? I mean, sooner or later, this comes back to bite you in the butt. It's like anything else. Things need upgrading, and you need to stay up with the industry. Imagine if you had a television station like we have now, and we were using black and white cameras. Now, how many
People would turn off immediately.
How long do you think that would? How do you like it? They don't even make a high definition black and white cameras. Haven't made them in years, or made them at all, or for high definition. But that wouldn't last very long.
No, definitely not. And, you and I are always talking about some of these environmental issues that, are coming up. And you and I debate a lot about how you're an environmentalist as long as it suits you, but you don't really, when you look at the full circle of things, it's like they only care about certain things that fit the narrative. They don't care about other things such as, how many birds are being killed by windmills, or how much land they're clearing for solar farms and what that does to population of different species. Not looking at any of those things, but PragerU did a really good segment on Confessions of an Environmentalist that I think our audience will love.
Yeah.
Does your electricity bill keep going up when the cost of producing electricity keeps going down? Why does your electricity bill keep going up when the cost of producing electricity keeps going down? Since 2010, the price of natural gas has fallen 43%, and coal prices have dropped 11%. And yet the price for electricity for residential users in the U.S. has risen 13% over that time. Why? Because almost all the money Americans should have saved, and we're talking serious money, went to subsidize renewable energy. Wind and solar, it turns out, are more expensive than advertised. Perhaps if renewable energy was what made our air cleaner, or what caused the dramatic reductions in CO2 over the last decade, you could say it was worth it. But our air was already becoming dramatically cleaner long before wind and solar were identified as environmentally critical. Emissions of harmful pollutants have decreased 77% in the U.S. since 1970. And that had nothing to do with wind and solar. It was almost entirely due to the switch from coal to natural gas. So if we're getting no cost savings from wind and solar and minimal benefits in terms of cleaner air or reductions in CO2, why are we so obsessed with it? The question becomes even sharper if we take a close look at your electricity bill. It consists of three main parts. Part 1, generation cost. Part 2, transmission cost. Part 3, taxes and fees. Part 1, generation cost. The cost of generating and reliably maintaining electricity comprises about 50% of your power bill. In order to keep the lights on, the demand for and supply of electricity must be satisfied at all times. Fossil-fueled electricity is inexpensive, and the fuel can be stored or sourced on-site. The electricity is there when you need it. In contrast, wind and solar generate electricity based on the mood of Mother Nature. This is known as the intermittency problem. And here's what it means in practical terms. For every wind and solar farm you build, you need a fossil fuel facility nearby to supply electricity on demand. This is what filmmaker Michael Moore and his team found out, much to their shock, when researching green energy for their documentary, Planet of the Humans. All that wasted money is reflected in your electricity bill. Part 2, transmission cost. The cost to transmit electricity is determined by the distance between the power plant and your home or business. This is one of the reasons fossil fuel and nuclear plants are ideally suited to power our large, dense cities and industries. They require little land space and can be situated near or within population centers, so they need relatively few transmission lines. But wind and solar resources require large tracts of land and are therefore usually placed in remote locations. That remoteness requires expensive new infrastructure. Texas, for example, has already spent over $7 billion in new transmission lines to bring distant wind power to cities in the east and south, and billions more will be required. Texans are already seeing those costs in their energy bills. But Texas is not unique. It's happening everywhere. Part 3, taxes and fees. Most taxes are plainly stated on your power bill. State taxes, city and county taxes, plus a bewildering assortment of fees. Those are bad enough. But what you won't see on your electricity bill are the federal and in many places state taxes that you pay to subsidize wind and solar generation. Federal subsidies alone for the wind and solar industries totaled more than $70 billion from 2010 to 2019. Most state governments kick in their own incentives. The subsidies for wind and solar are in a class by themselves and have been for decades. We are not incentivizing new technology, but are artificially supporting an industry. Take away the subsidies, and very likely that industry does not exist. Add it all up: the generation cost, the transmission cost, the taxes and fees. You're paying a lot more than you should. Maybe you can afford it, but many can't. An electricity bill is a regressive expense, meaning it takes up a lot bigger chunk of the budget of a lower middle-class family than it does an upper middle-class one. Many poor families devote more than 10% of their income after food, rent, and transportation to electricity, while those further up the income scale spend only a few percent. A third of American households report having difficulty paying their electricity bills, and 7 million families face the choice between putting food on the table or keeping their home warm during the cold winter months. So maybe we should be thinking more about them and less about expensive, inefficient wind and solar energy. Yes, the wind and the sun are free, but wind and solar power are anything but. I'm Charles McConnell, former Assistant Secretary of Energy in the Obama administration for Prager University. Thank you for watching this video. To keep PragerU videos free, please consider making a tax-deductible donation.
PragerU is doing amazing things. I think that was a wonderful
They really
breakdown.
Yeah, we're bringing kids to the Lord,
Yes.
Among other things, and telling people like it is, and educating people about the political issues. We've been talking about the horrible. These windmills are a blight on the landscape. They are extremely expensive, and just the amount of environmental damage that is done to make one of these things and then to put it in. And right now they're talking about they're doing experiments on putting a big wind farm off the coast of New Jersey, Brittany, and it is called. Right now they've had 7 whales washed up on shore in the last few months. You've never seen this before, and it's because they're out there doing all of this electronic, sonar research and trying to figure out where to put this wind farm, and how to go ahead and pave the Atlantic Ocean bed to put up these windmills, because it takes 30 tons of concrete to put one of them up. 30 tons of concrete for one of these things. And they're going to be you imagine going to the Jersey Shore and you're sitting there and you're looking up and you see windmills out on the horizon.
Yeah, no thank you.
Yeah, it is just pathetic, and it's confusing the whales because they're using these sonar devices that are on the same frequency. And if you recall, a few years ago, about 10 years ago, they told the Navy that they could not put a new sonar system into our submarines because it would interfere with the whale population, and it would confuse them. And so here we are. We've had the 7th beached whale in New Jersey, and when Jesse Waters from Fox News tried to get in touch with the governor of New Jersey, they said they got word back to him, said they weren't as concerned about it. It's just natural. Whales wash up on shore all the time. Nothing to see here, folks. So
Well, they also don't talk about the outcomes, how long they last, and what
Right.
they're doing with them, is burying them into our soil, which I'm sure is not good for the environment and not good for our food.
Yeah, exactly.
To have these buried. So,
or where we could grow food now, because if you're clearing out land to put these solar panels in, where are you going to plant the crops?
Bill,
It's just.
it's so frustrating that people don't get it.
And as one of my announcer, one of the radio hosts that I heard the other day was saying that he was driving through Oklahoma and was driving past this huge wind farm, and none of the blades were turning, and was asking why. I said, well, they can't run them right now because the wind is too high. You can't run if the wind if the wind speed gets more than 40 miles an hour, these things can't run without being damaged. So they have to turn them off.
Yeah, so they have to run under perfect circumstances.
So
the same thing
wind
with solar.
farm can't run when there's a lot of wind. You can't make this stuff up. And Georgia is the only state in the last 40 or 50 years that's building nuclear power plants. We've got one that's about to come online here very shortly, unless, of course, this administration decides they're going to come in, the day before we're supposed to throw the switch and tells them we can't turn it on. And we have another one that's under construction that's probably about a year or two out.
Well, the good news is that the Supreme Court last year ruled on an environmental case stating that the federal government cannot tell state governments what to do. So I think that will play a role as well. So
let's hope so.
Let's keep an eye on that.
Yeah, but this administration has not shown a great ability to actually obey the law. They just
Not
ignore
really their
it.
thing, no.
The federal government, federal judge says you can't do this, and we're going to do it anyway.
Yeah, take us to court, right?
Yeah, that's right. It's like playing poker with Bill Gates.
Oh,
all right.
geez.
Well, hope you have a great holiday. We will see you for the Tuesday edition tomorrow on Get Real America, where we're going to continue to get real and tell it like it is.
Yes, thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you guys tomorrow.
Godspeed.